Hey everyone! Today we're looking at a sharp hand from the tournament dedicated to the 2-year SEU anniversary of the All Friends Club, which was celebrated at the Shambhala Casino. The tournament, with a buy-in of 15,000 rubles, gathered a total of 111 people, and the guarantee of 1.5 million was exceeded, almost doubled to 2,800,000 rubles as the total prize pool. Incredible numbers for the first event. Offline, or rather an online club. It goes offline, the events are very fun, there were many guests, about 30 people just from Khabarovsk and from all over the Far East from our club. We met many people, socialized, there was a pleasant atmosphere, it was very fun, we had a great time. As I already mentioned, the buy-in for the tournament was 15,000 rubles, but there was also a stage for 5,000, and of course you could qualify for the tournament through numerous online satellites, which naturally took place in the All Friends Club on the X-Poker platform. How to download the app and join the club can be found on my Telegram channel. Subscribe, the link is in the profile header. So let's start watching. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, pour yourself some tea, and enjoy watching. The tournament began, and in the first hand I have Ace-Jack suited. There's a raise of 5 big blinds. I raise the bet to 2,000. Get a call, and we go to the flop playing heads up. The flop is king high, I have a gut shot, there's a check, and I think it's a good spot to bet. I bet and they about half the pot, a continuation bet, and get a call. The turn brings an ace, but it completes the flush draw from the flop. I think there's not much point in betting here, as the opponent could have all the sets, straights, and flushes. On the river, we play check-check, the opponent shows ace-queen, and we lose the first pot. Next, note that the blinds are already 400 to 800, which means 3 to 4 levels have passed. I didn't get any cards for 2 hours, but I opened a few times, missed the flop and folded, and then I'm dealt ace-king. I open for 2 big blinds, get a call from the small and big blinds, and we go to the flop 3-handed. The flop is queen, high, flush draw. Both opponents check. I think it's worth trying to bet. Who knows, they might fold right away. I bet 2,000. I get a call from the small blind, and the big blind also calls. A 6 comes on the turn, we haven't improved, so we check. A 9 comes on the river, we have ace high, the opponent from the small blind bets. I think up a small bet, suspecting he might have a missed flush draw. I call him, but he has 2 pairs, and we just missed another level with our 6s suited. For such a board, it's practically the nuts. I open with a bet of 2,000 with blinds at 500, 1,000, 1,000. All opponents fold except for the big blind, so we go heads up to the flop, which is decent with only 1 overcard. I decide that I will bet 100% of my range here. On this board I get a call, the turn brings a flush, and we check, and the river brings another spade. Now I have a flush, albeit with a 6, and the opponent makes a small bet. Of course, I call with the flush, and the opponent shows 54. Great, the first pot of the day. In this hand I shoved 25 big blinds from early position into a limp under the gun. I'm not sure how okay this is. Maybe it would be better to play through a raise. But the stack is already short, so it's either time to double up or head to the cashier. I get a call from pocket 5s, and we're flipping a coin. The flop misses us, the turn is a blank, and the river is an out. Well, I made a re-entry, and I've been moved to a new table. They started dealing right away, and I isolate the limper from under the gun with ace-jack offsuit. Sitting on the hijack, I get a call from the big blind, and the limper also calls. We see the flop. 3 of us. On the flop, I hit top pair with a decent kicker. Both opponents check. I decide to bet bigger here because there's a flush draw, the big blind folds, and I get a call from under the gun. A 2 of clubs comes out. Well, not a super card, but the pot is already big. I have about 35,000 behind me. I decide to go all in, and I get an instant fold. Excellent. Under the gun, open raise to 5,000. I have pocket tens on the cutoff. I make a 3-bet, raise to fit. A 4-bet comes from the button. If you're looking for a reliable poker club with a huge selection of games, daily tournaments, and deposit bonuses, then I want to recommend to you the Lucky Streak Club on the X-Poker and Club GG platforms. Just message the manager on Telegram and they will answer all your questions and help you join the club. Withdrawals and deposits can be made in stablecoins USDT and USDT. Welcome to the club and good luck at the tables. The pot is 150,000 on the big blind. They go all in, well, about 200 there. On the UTG also all in. And for me here, of course, it's an easy fold with my tens. For better ace king on the big blind. Duashes. Tens on the UTG. I ended up with no outs. Well, and the flop without any adventures, such a hand before the next hand. I want to briefly talk about the atmosphere at our table. We had a person who would call pre-flop raises with any two cards. In this hand, he hits a 95 with king jack ace, the king makes a straight. And in the next hand, he hits jacks, kings and nines. With 6-4, he already hit kings with 3-2, tens with 5-2, or vice versa. In short, it was fun. He was playing everything. And here he was close to hitting kings but didn't succeed. And I'm on the small blind with 2 queens. Our fearless opponent is still in the hand. He called a raise from early position. I think this is my shining moment and I go all in. The tight opponent from early position folds, and he asked to count our stack. Thought for a long time, but unfortunately folded his cards. I don't understand why the system failed, specifically for me, but at least I wasn't knocked out. So, I have an easy decision here. Opened from UTG. It turns out, early position called. There's another call from middle position. I have ace-king on the cutoff. I naturally go all in. Everyone folds to UTG. He asks to count the stack. I have about 25 blinds. +1. Folds as well. We get a call from 10-9 suited. What's happening? Where are we? The flop is great, but the opponent has outs. And on the river we held on, doubling up nicely. Thus we made it to the second day, also with hands from the new day. We start again with ace-8 offsuit. Everyone folds to the big blind who decides to defend, and the flop comes with 2 kings. We make a continuation bet and win the hand. Next hand we have 10 suited on the cutoff. I open and get a call from the small blind. And a call from the big blind. The flop comes ace high, we have a gut shot and a backdoor. On the flush draw I make a small continuation bet, get a call from the small blind, and the big blind also calls. The turn brings a 3, which doesn't improve us, but both opponents check, so I decide to continue my aggression, and it works. Next I have pocket 6s under the gun and I make an open raise. Flight 2000. I get a 3-bet from the cutoff. He raises to 8, and with deep stacks I decide to call the 3-bet. The flop is very favorable for me. I decide to check. The opponent bets 6,000, and with the idea that he might have an ace. King, ace queen, king queen, some bluffs, with king 8 and other hands, I decide to call once, hoping he will give up on later streets. I check on the turn and he checks as well. On the river a straight completes and I hope to provoke him into bluffing. I check but nothing happens. I win this pot here with 2 8s from early position. I isolate the limper. Bet 4,000. The small blind makes a rather hefty 3-bet to 18,000. Because the limper on UTG calls, I decide to enter this pot as well. The flop is not bad for me, only 1 overcard. A small bet comes from the small blind, 15,000. And here I notice some live tails already. I think if UTG folds, Ida will probably call. That's what happens, I call. A 3 comes on the turn, a good card for me. Of course it improves to a gut shot, all ace queens, ace kings, ace jacks, and weaker aces. It's unlikely he has ace 4, 4, 6. Of course he might have over pairs, but he makes a very small bet, a quarter of the pot, plus I have some tells, and on the opponent on the river came a 10. The opponent thought, and he will check, and I happily check back, being confident that my 8s are good in such a lineup. But unfortunately the opponent will show ace 10. It turns out my live tells were correct, but he got there. It's a pity. Overall, today wasn't very lucky with the seating arrangement. We have a rather tough table. The two most pleasant opponents are sitting in position against me. In this hand, they are on the cutoff and button. I open for 2.5 and they both call. It turns out unpleasant for me. The board has 2 overcards, and for some reason I decide to bet out of position. I don't understand what I'm trying to make fold, probably. Now I prefer a check, the cutoff calls. Well, at least I managed to make one fold on the turn. Another ace comes. Here, I definitely need to stop. Well, with an ace, I might have even played a check. I bet 10,000, hoping to get value from a queen there, some gut shots, empty hands, but the opponent calls and the river doesn't change my situation at all. I give up here. Play a check and a huge bet comes my way. The size of the pot. Naturally I fold. Our opponent Dimitri shows a bluff, well, both played by him. So here I have ace king from early position. I open for 3,500 and get 3 bet from the cutoff. I think I'll be playing a shove, but the player on the SB disrupts. My plans with a 4 bet to 4 to 800. Looks very strong here. Both my open and the 3 bet from my opponent on the cutoff. So the SB's bet is really queens. Plus I am leaning towards folding here. And I fold here. As far as I remember, there are a few limps. 100 from the hijack. I'm on the SB with ace king and decide to make a huge move. For late 10 BB, I bet 16,000 and get a call on the BB. Everyone else folds. Of course, with such a flop, I'm ready to go all in, but I bet 20,000 and I get a fold here. For the 3rd time, I have ace king. Actually, I'm on the big blind. There's a mistake in the graphics and from the button. An open raise comes. I make a 3 bet to 22,000 and get a fold. Here, I've already decided that I will only play with ace king. All other cards are folds. Fortunately, ace king comes often enough. Already the 4th time in a row from UTG, his open raises. I play a 3 bet, get a call. On the hijack, and the open raiser also calls. We see the flop 300. Not a very pleasant flop for me. Wallet high. UTG checks. I check. Hijack also checks. Alright, we're doing better now. An ace comes out. We have top pair. UTG here checks. I decide to bet 15,000. Hijack folds. And UTG goes all in. It's actually an unpleasant situation for me because the ace fits well with my range. And it's in my strong range. Goes all in. I assume he could have all the sets here. 5s, 9s, jacks. Ace, jack. 10, queen maybe. What we beat, right? It's unlikely that king, queen is the only hand we beat. And far ahead is ace, queen. I'm not sure he would go with a queen here. All in is a strong move. Maybe he sometimes folds it pre-flop. Maybe he goes all in. In this hand, ace king most likely. He will shove on my 3 bet, but remains only with 9s, ace jack, 5s. Some hands like that. I feel like I'm far behind here. Maybe not quite right, but I fold. So here on the big blind, suited 8, I'm playing with quiz against open from the button and it works. So in this hand I have ace 6 suited. I open with a standard 2 big blinds. All BB pass and the big blind calls. 2 players in the game. The flop is quite good. I have the nuts. The opponent checks. I make a standard continuation bet. And how nice it is to get a raise when you have the nuts. I pretended to think for a moment, but I will call 100% of the time. Here, it might be necessary to sometimes play a raise with my hand, but I want to keep all the bluffs in the hand, some dominated flushes. So I play a call. A 5 of spades comes on the turn. It's a 100% blank. My opponent checks. And I also check. A 5 of hearts comes on the river, completing a 1-card flush and some potential full houses. My opponent bets 10,000 and I started to think if I have a value bet possible here. He might have a full house, but now I look at what full houses he could have. Pocket threes, 3-5, maybe Jack Queen, Jack 5, which is very rare. And here, naturally, I should go all in. Or raise, but in any case, try to extract value, but definitely not just call. And the opponent showed a king of hearts. I probably would have extracted value. The thing is, this spot doesn't seem very bluff heavy to me because I have never a bluff when going all in, and therefore I believe that worse hands won't pay off. Most likely even a king of hearts would fold, but actually I need to find some bluffs, like for example Jack 10. 2 pairs on the river into a bluff with such a bet or some kind of 3. Jack ace, 3 of diamonds, yes. What other bluffs can be thought of here? Let's say 2 4s with a heart to knock out a 6 of hearts, 7 or 8, not to set up an all-in. In short, you can actually come up with plenty of bluffs here, and you need to bet big accordingly for these bluffs to work. So, what's next? I have 7s in middle position. There's an open raise from earlier, I just call. Another player on the big blind calls, and we go to the flop 3-handed. On the flop, I immediately hit a set. Both opponents check to me and I think I need to bet here. I bet 7,500. I get a call from the big blind. And a fold from the open raiser. The turn brings a queen of spades. Well, that's a blank. I think I still have the strongest hand in the hand. I continue by betting 18,000. And unfortunately, the opponent folds. Moving on, I have pocket 10s in middle position. There's an open raise from early position, I call. Another opponent on the cutoff calls, and the big blind also comes along. We go to the flop 4-handed. On the flop, there's a 10, giving me top pair, top kicker, but the open raiser fires a large bet into 3 opponents. 25,000. And I think this always means he has some kind of overpair, so I fold my top pair 10s. The cutoff goes all in, the big blind folds, and the early position player calls. He has kings. Against the flush draw, the turn is a 7 and the river completes the flush. That's how kings get shaken up. Here I have pocket 4s on the UTG. I make an open raise. The cutoff folds, the small blind calls, Mourguilis, and the big blind also calls. The flop isn't great. 10 high didn't hit their target. Set, but I still make a continuation bet. The small blind calls, the big blind folds. On the turn, a 3 comes out, giving us a gut shot. Here, theoretically, I should probably give up. 20 years indeed. The board isn't very favorable, but I continue the aggression, betting 22,000, representing some kind of overpair like aces, kings, queens, 4 jacks. With these tins, maybe due to some observations, the opponent didn't seem very confident, really wanted to... Well, maybe it was a reverse tell he was showing, but he wanted to already here, but still convinced myself to go to the floor. And therefore, when the lady came out in his check, I decided to go all in. A rather reckless move, don't do this, it's not the right board for such bluffs, but it worked, thank goodness. Here my stack had already melted, I was 3-betting, opening and hitting nothing. Folding, throwing away, and the stack was already down to 61,000. I go all in from the button with 15 big blinds. And I get a call on the BB, turns out to be kings. But the perfect flop ace jack. Hit on the turn and on the river. By the way, poor guy, we're heading to the cashier. Did a re-entry, got seated at the new table right away. We have jack 9 suited. I open with 2 big blinds and get a call on the BB. Great flop for me. Jack plus a flush draw. I make a continuation bet. The opponent calls. On the turn comes a 10, strengthening us to an open-ended straight draw. The opponent checks. Well, of course, with such a monster draw plus top pair, I will bet. I bet 25,000, get called again. On the river, a blank comes. The opponent checks. We also check. I show my jack. And there was an open-ended straight draw. This is probably the most interesting hand in the tournament. The opponent was actually on the cutoff, a mistake in the graphics. So he opened from the cutoff. I was called. On the big blind, I have 10-8 offsuit. On the flop, we hit an open-ended straight draw. He makes us the continuation bet of 12,000, and I decide to play check raise. Here. Now, I don't really like the sizing of my check raise. I would now bet somewhere around 35,000. Well, a bit more, 36, like that. Representing 3 times, he plays call on the turn. A 4 comes out, not completing our draw. To be honest, I don't know how often we should bet or check here. But since we took the initiative, I continue. I bet 35. Again, I don't like the bet. Probably if betting, then for something more, or just check. The opponent thought for a long time, but eventually calls, and the 3 comes out on the river. Our draw doesn't complete, and I play a check here. Actually, I should have gone all in. Probably. This is the best hand for a bluff here. But I was afraid, having just re-entered, I didn't want to make another re-entry. The opponent bets 100,000, and of course we fold our 10 high. It's frustrating that I didn't dare to bluff, because the opponent showed ace 10. And of course we would have knocked out the ace high with such a play. But a good hand from my opponent. So already in the final editing, I decided to see how I should have played with 10-8. But it starts with a call. In most cases, it's interesting that there are raises here, but I never consider this raise with such a hand. So on the flop, I play a check 100%, that's correct. It's clear. Caught off bets and how we react to his bet. It turns out. You can play with a call. Interestingly, I hadn't considered that call. I always thought you should raise such a hand, but nevertheless, my bet. It turns out 5, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 3, 5, 3, 3, 5, 3, 3, 5, 3, 3, 5, 3, 3, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 3, 5, 3, 5. The blinds, I set it at about 28,000. Well, in short, it has its place, but in most cases you should call. Sometimes raising the blinds is around 35, 36,000, yes. 38 approximately, as I said. So, but I raised, it turns out, ready, called. Okay, a 4 came out. By the way, the flop in the montage isn't quite right. Most likely there was a flush draw on the flop because I didn't manage to capture this hand. So I wrote it down from memory in a notebook. I don't remember which ones. Maybe the opponent. Mine might remember, but it's unlikely. In short, not remembering, there was a flush draw and there wasn't. And it's interesting. So on the turn, Should I be betting the turn with my hand? Almost always a bet. No, actually there's a check. Yes, you can play from the person. Which is interesting. Well, okay. So, well, we played a bet. But the bet should be big. That comes to about 45,000. As I said, basically. So on the river understood. On the big blind, well, yes, with my hand I should always play all in. Also, with unmade hands, if you look at the unmade hands, what are there? It's a gut shot with a 10 at home. Houses of Article 10 are rented out. Here are houses of Year 8 shot. Ace and backdoor draws. In short, these are the kinds of bluffs on the river that can be devised, and my hand is the best candidate for bluffs, of course. Unfortunately, I chickened out in that hand, making such a profitable bluff. So next I have pocket twos on the hijack. I play an open raise, get a call from the SB, and from the BB. Not a bad flop. I have a set. Both opponents check to me. I of course make a continuation bet of 12,000. SB folds. On the BB, I get a call. The worst card comes on the turn. A 4 completes a 1 card straight from the deck. Now any opponent has a straight or they won't pay me off. There's no point in betting. And on the river we play check. The opponent shows something like 5-3 and I take the pot. So what do we have today? It turns out the buy-in is again 15,000, the stack is 200, and my starting stack is about 220,000. This is 55 big blinds at the start of the day. So the prize pool has exceeded 1.522,000, but there are still 2 levels, meaning 80 minutes for late registration. 79 are in the game, but more will join. And basically everything is 40 minutes per level. Just like yesterday, we play until the end, it seems. Google. The third day has started, and we begin with the worst hand of the entire tournament. Here on the hijack, I don't 3-bet early with ace-queen. Well, you can play like that sometimes, but right now I definitely prefer 3 bets. And after me, the SB and big blind join in. On the flop we have a gut shot. The blinds check, the open raiser makes a continuation bet. I decide to chase my gut shot, and the players in the blinds also call. A king comes on the turn. SB checks BB. Checks. EP also checks, and I come up with a brilliant plan. To steal this pot cheaply, I bet 25,000. SB folds, the player on BB calls. And the open raiser also folds. A 4 comes on the river, completing the backdoor flush. And for some reason I decide to bluff here. Maybe to hit a 10, but the opponent instantly calls, shows king-queen. And with my ace high, I lose half my stack. After this hand I fall into a severe tilt. I sit there thinking, what a mess I made, what nonsense I played, why didn't I 3-bet, why did I even come up with this bluff? I could have gotten away with it cheaper. Inside me there's a strong desire to win back, to get my chips back right here and now. But I still find the strength to calm down, not do anything stupid and play the next hand as well as possible. Here I am completely calm, I have a good hand, I am ready to win. I go all in from the button against an UTG open raiser. I am instantly called, they turn over aces. And playing against 2 8s, I have great chances to win. The flop with an ace is excellent. I have a set. And unfortunately a diamond comes on the river, completing a flush for my opponent. Such bad beats hardly affect me, especially offline. I head to the cashier with a cool head. I re-enter, and in one of the first hands, I get kings on UTG. I make an open raise to 10,000 from UTG, plus 1 I am immediately 3-bet. I think it's possible. A cooler, queens, jacks that won't fold. And I'm contemplating the size of the 4-bet. I decide to make it slightly higher on the 4-bet, 80,000 purely for cooler value. But unfortunately the opponent folds. He said he folded ace-queen. Great fold. Here I slightly go out of range. I play a call from the big blind with 3-2 offsuit against an opponent from the hijack and a call from the button. On the flop I hit 2-pair. And of course I check. The open raiser makes a continuation bet of $17,000 on the button. The player calls. And of course here I plan to play a check raise because I have a strong but very vulnerable hand. I bet 50,000, call on the hijack, and fold on the button, so we remain heads up. The turn brings not the best card. A queen, some 2 pairs with king-queen are completed. But I already had a plan to go all in on any turn, probably except for an ace. And I go all in. The opponent thought for a very long time, but eventually calls. I understand that I'm ahead here. He turns over king-9 offsuit. And on the river, we held up perfectly. Next, I have 2 queens on UTG. I open standardly 2 big blinds. I get a 3-bet from the cutoff. 45,000. And I don't overthink it, I just go all in. There's an instant call. 2 jacks. The flop is clean. The turn puck is excellent. River comes in. Here I play a limp from SB versus BB. The big blind checks. We go to the flop. I have a gut shot. I bet 1 blind. I get a call. On the turn, the super card completes the gut shot. I double check my cards, I don't believe it. This miraculous wonder. I bet 30,000. I get a call. The river isn't very favorable. It completes full houses and flushes. But I still think I need to extract value here. I bet 50,000 and get an instant click raise. Interesting, damn. Well, 35, 6-3 completed. All these hands are possible. 3 backdoor flushes, but of course I naturally call and damn. In this hand, again a confrontation. Blind versus blind. I open, raising the big blind to 35,000. I get an instant call. The flop isn't the worst for us. Second pair. I check. The opponent bets 45,000. I call. On the turn I check again. I receive 50,000. I think here I always have to call. After all, there are still some bluffs, random ones. A jack on the river. We play check-check, I think I've won. But unfortunately the opponent has a king. So, in this hand, I'm on the hijack. I have king-queen. I open standardly. 2 big blinds. And a strong reg with a huge stack is seated on the small blind. And as expected, he 3-bets, making it 90. I understand that he will 3-bet us widely. He will use his advantage. So I make a 4-bet shove in the dark. I get an instant fold. So here I have ace-queen in early position. I open. And I get an insta push from a tight opponent on the low jack. Everyone folds to me. And I have a rather difficult decision. 327,000 is a large part of my stack. If I lose, I'll be left with just a small amount. I think there are never weaker aces there. And at best, it's a coin flip. So I fold. I'm on the button. I have queen 9-1 suited. I open, betting 40,000 with blinds at 10, 20, 20. Big blind. Defense. The flop comes with my flush draw, and a donk bet of 50,000 is made against me. Flop with an ace. I don't think there's often an ace on the big blind. I go all in. The opponent thinks for a long time and shows that he folded an 8. I have kings on UTG. I open. I get one call from the cutoff. Not at all. A pleasant flop comes out for my kings. There's already a ready-made straight flush draw. I check. The opponent bets 60,000. I understand that I won't fold in this hand, and with each new card, the situation can only get worse. I just go all in. The opponent seriously thought about it, but eventually folded. Here I opened from the hijack with 2 aces and got a call on the cutoff. On the small blind, the chip leader plays a squeeze, raising to 180,000, and he has already squeezed us before we shoved with king-queen. And this time I think maybe he has a value hand, maybe it's a cooler. Obviously, without the backstory, 100 out of 100 times I would just call. But because there is a backstory, I go all in. And instant folds, it's a pity. So here with 2 queens, I 3-bet the chip leader. From early position, we got an all-in from the big blind. The open raiser folds, I of course called. There were 2 jacks. We had a decent chance to double up, but unfortunately a jack comes right on the flop and the river doesn't help us at all. Our run in this tournament ends, unfortunately, in such a frustrating bad beat. Well, that's how I end my performance, a frustrating bad beat, queens against jacks. This hand occurred somewhere in the top 40 for a stack of 1,000,000. Such a stack could have even made it to the final table, but luck wasn't on our side, as it happens. Overall, with the tournament, I'm not very satisfied with my play. There were many tough decisions. Where I should have bluffed, I didn't. Where I should have folded, I bluffed. Basically, everything was the opposite. But because of that, it was like a birthday. Many guests constantly came to this event. There was a party outside of game time. We went out, had fun, and overall enjoyed ourselves. I'm satisfied with the agenda, very much so. Thanks to all the organizers. Once again, congratulations to the club on its 2nd anniversary, and goodbye to everyone.